Hello everyone. Let's take a minute to look at this image. What do you see? A lot of ads, a lot of clutter, scare and annoyance maybe on the user's face. Well, this is how the life on the web looks like today. It's very cluttered, you get ads, whatever you see. It's kind of relevant, isn't it? And we are going to talk about why is this so and how you can use tracking protection in Firefox to actually help yourself. I am Ankit Gadgil, and I'm going to talk to you about tracking protection using Firefox today. Personally, about me, I highly advocate data privacy. I have been an open source contributor for the last 9 years now, and specifically with Mozilla, I volunteer as a reps mentor and peer. As a day job, I work at Red Hat as an associate manager in software engineering. Um, let's look at what we are going to talk about today. It's going to be online data privacy. We're going to touch on how we can actually care about our online privacy and make sure that we are not tracked actually, and how are we actually giving away our data for free. Um, Essentially, in the privacy world, it's said that if you're using a product for free, this means you're the product. Um, and we are also going to see how you can customize your browser, specifically Firefox, to protect your privacy. All right, so let's get started. Let's talk about this word, privacy. As Glenn Greenwald, a very well-known privacy advocate, mentioned in his blogs, I don't really worry about invasions of privacy because I don't have anything to hide, is something that people have said to him a lot of times. And in these situations, he gets a pen out and gives it to the responder and says, write down all your email addresses, even those shabby ones. Write down all those passwords so that I can go home, look at your email address using your passwords, go through everything that I like, and publish anything that I feel on the internet. Would you be okay with it? And not a single person has taken up for this offer. This is obviously because they care about their privacy, even if when they say that they don't have anything to hide. So, in today's world, do you think privacy is dead? Well, look at it in this way. Social media companies now nearly know everything about you, and the world is still turning. Whether you don't mind companies or governments knowing all about your personal life, or you feel completely uneasy at that idea, we often gloss over exactly why our personal data is so much worth protecting. Let's think about how these companies, these organizations who are interested in your data actually are tracking you. Uh, a bunch about my travel preferences from recent trips I've researched, including the proverbial one to Italy, including what I wanted to depart when I wanted to depart on, and how far in advance my trip is going to be. Everything, including the arrival points, was known to these organizations because of my social media posts, my recent search history, and stuff like that. Um, Essentially, these companies and these organizations and the social media accounts you use and the ads you click and the e-shopping you are doing is actually getting together tracking data. They're using different types of cookies and web mechanisms to understand what exactly are you trying to do on the internet, and some information about you, for example, your job profile or the information technology you're using, for example, the laptop you're using, the time you use that in, your gender, your age, your range of your geographical area is actually very accurately known to most of the companies and organizations that deal in data and are interested in you. So let's look at how this is done. This is done through online tracking. Consumers are often unaware of transactions that are taking place when they sign in for information away. Noting that the lack of transparency, coupled with the fact that companies are actually interested in your information, uh, keeps the consumers from the opt out behavior. It keeps the consumers away from it. If you look at the Facebook's case, you are actually worth of nearly shy $5 per year, and this is when you're not using Facebook and just have an account on it. Consider when you're using Facebook and leaving your footprint and leaving likes and comments on various posts, this number actually goes up. It will go up from $5 to maybe n number of dollars going ahead. Um, and the online tracking is actually done through your browser. The things that you do is known to your browser, and also different websites that you're not visiting are also tracking what you're doing on a website that you're visiting. How is it done? Is there's a mechanism called cookies on your browser. This is where your browser stores your data, mostly in the encrypted format. But if it's not encrypted, it's very easy to be actually used. Most of us think that while using private browsing or incognito mode is very safe and we will not be tracked. But I should tell you, this can be misleading. What we actually think is that we are browsing privately, but what it actually means is that the browser is not going to keep the history and is going to delete it. But essentially, it is still going to keep the cookies till your session expires. And in that duration before the session expires, you can still be tracked. So essentially, if you're using private browsing, it is nothing but a normal browsing mode where your search history is deleted after you log out or you shut the browser. Essentially, when you're using sites and services in the private browsing or incognito mode, you still can be identified using your IP address and your browser configurations. And we'll see in the further slides how this is actually done. There is something called as browser fingerprinting. No matter how much you try to shield yourself, the fingerprint of your browser is still unique to a level of 1 in a million. Even if you and your family mates or your friends are actually using the same browser that you are doing and also are using the same add-ons or still using the same configurations, the laptop that you're using it on or the screen resolution you're using it on, the colors on your browser, your browsing habits, everything from supported fonts, screen resolutions to time zones, language, font preferences, everything, even the hardware configurations of your laptop's engine are actually contributing to uniquely creating a browser fingerprint for you. These identifier may actually seem very generic, but they are very, very personal and they can be really help identify a specific person in 1 in a million. If you're really interested in knowing what browser fingerprinting is, you can go to panopticlick.eff.org. EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, actually has a very good app called Panopticlick, where you can test your browser and how it is giving away information and it is safe or not. Let's move on. Let's take a closer look at this slide. So this is something that I tried out by myself, where I did not use any configurations, any add-ons onto my browser. It is a completely new install of Firefox. Um, and I visited the very famous e-commerce site. And this is what I found. I did not click on anything. I just typed the address in the address bar, and I found a lot of tracking there. You can easily see that in the circle. You can see that there are a lot of trackers who I don't even know of or I have not had transactions with. You can look at the list on the left side. I just visited Amazon.com and it gave me a lot of trackers. It's already tracking what I am trying to do online. Uh, why do the tracking exist? And as I mentioned earlier, profiling is one of them, but ads is a major revenue source, whereas data theft cannot be ruled out as well. Online advertising and profiling has a symbiotic relationship, if you may call it. Advisors pay content publishers and a lot of data brokers to embed promotional material in their content. And this helps the data brokers actually house the data, get information about you. Today, if you look at the statistics, around 50 billion strong is the advertisement industry just online, and this is all happening on your data. So this is actually what the situation is today. You are being tracked, and period. That's the reality. No matter how much you try to shield yourself, there is some amount of tracking happening. Sometimes some amount of tracking is okay, where you need some personalized results. For example, if you go onto a particular site and you have been browsing there, you might want the site to just remember what you have been doing on the website, so that you get relevant results. But a lot of tracking is bad because it's not being told to you. If there is a mechanism of opt-in, it's going to really help the consumer understand why they are being tracked and if they really want to be tracked or not. So that's what the situation or the issue is. Let's talk about solutions today. The first solutions I'm going to talk about is your preferences. Now, your preferences and habits online actually play a very big role. What browser you use, what websites you are actually going through on a daily basis, should you restrict yourself from going to specific websites, and all of that. Let's talk about it. I will talk about what kind of browsers here today. And if you see, there are three browsers that I'm mentioning today. The first one is the browser Brave. It's an open source browser built on top of Chromium, an open source version of the Chrome browser, which means it's easy for Chrome users to make a switch to Brave. However, unlike Chrome, Brave does not collect any of your data and keeps your online activity to itself. Also, your data remains private and on your device, and it's not sent out to a lot of tracking trackers out there. The second one is Firefox, which is my favorite browser, and I've been using it since the last 12 years now, 12 to 13 years now, private, like personally and professionally. And Firefox actually has now introduced something called as the advanced anti-fingerprinting and also the enhanced tracking protection. These features have been rolled out in this year of 2020, and both of which make Firefox one of the very difficult browsers for third-party trackers to infiltrate for your data with. So I really prefer Firefox in that sense. And the third browser I'm going to mention is Tor. And Tor can be actually used to anonymize your online activity and to guard your privacy. Basically, when you use Tor, your traffic is encrypted like three times and it's bounced back between Tor servers. And this is all encrypted and handled in such a way that these servers only have access to one set of instructions. So no other servers actually know what your initial request from your IP address was. And it is an amazing browser if you are okay with a bit of a lag for loading your websites. And also, Tor is being used by a lot of journalists, a lot of people who want to remain on anonymous online but still want to propagate their data, even if it is controversial. So all of these browsers are also available on your mobile devices. So if you're using them on your handheld devices, on your tablets, they are still available, and you can still sync your data and your browsing history as well if you feel so. Let's talk about tracking protection, the main topic today at hand. So trackers. Let's talk about what are trackers. So trackers and tracking in general refers to the content, the cookies, or the scripts that collect your data of your browsing and your habits online across multiple sites. And this all data is then sold out to the best bidding organizations so that they can send you relevant ads and then they can profile you. And tracking protection is actually a new privacy technology to mitigate these invasive tracking attacks. And also, it starts blocking requests that are not of the domain that you are actually visiting. What it actually means is that since Firefox does not download or render content from tracking domains, tracking protection also enjoys performance enhancements. And also about 44% of median reduction on page loads against any other browser that is using tracking protection without the enhanced tracking protection that Firefox is using, because it is downloading and rendering content from tracking domains. Uh, Also, if you look at the data usage, there is around 39% of decrease into data usage because you're just visiting the website that you're interested in and not downloading any content from the tracking domains. Um, let's talk about content blocking, which is also a part, which is an advanced part of tracking protection. The privacy benefits of tracking protection work now as part of the content blocking mechanism. The content blocking is actually a collection of Firefox's privacy features that protect you from theft and anonymizing yourself on the web. The default actually includes protection from trackers, from multiple websites, and also from crypto miners. Firefox also offers a lot of protection against harmful scripts, such as malware that actually run in the background without even you knowing. Um, when you're using Firefox, if you're seeing a shield icon on the left side of your address bar, then there is where you can see that the tracking protection is enabled. When you see the shield in your address bar, the content blocking is actually on, and to make sure that if this is on, or you want to actually customize your experience on Firefox and also configure tracking protection, you can go into preferences and then have a look at tracking protection there. Currently, content blocking protects against several types of trackers. You can customize the content blocking via privacy settings in your preference menu as it is shown right now on your screen through a screenshot. Clicking on tracking content section will actually expand a window with details of the tracking websites that have been blocked. Um, so let's look at an actual scenario here. If you look at it, I've gone to a very famous news site, and when you actually see the shield in your address bar, you know that the content blocking is on. Currently, content blocking protects against certain type of trackers. You can customize this, as I said earlier, into the content blocking via privacy settings in the preference menu. Uh, you can also see that what kind of trackers are being blocked. This all information is available in the window that is seen in the screenshot right now. So let's talk about what is enhanced tracking protection. Firefox recently rolled out the enhanced tracking protection. Also, Mozilla, the parent organization of Firefox, has been working tirelessly for the last 3 years to actually include tracking protection in their browser. Let me give you some history here. So, Firefox started with a partnership with Tor. Essentially, Tor is a browser which is created on the open source code base of Firefox. They were really working towards a lot of privacy based features, but essentially that slowed down the Tor browser, which is okay for people who are using Tor in that sense. But for a normal user, for a person who really wants strong privacy but also does not want to compromise on speed and wants to have a normal browsing experience, can actually use Firefox. And now Mozilla is also trying to have the Tor upliftment effort, where they have included the enhanced tracking protection taken directly from Tor, and where the Tor engineers are also working on Firefox to make it better in that sense. So Tracking Protection 2.0 is basically the next step in continuing and providing a safe and private experience for Firefox users. How does it work is, if you're actually on a review website and you click on a link that appears to take you to a detailed website, there is always a redirection tracker which is in the middle. Sometimes you must feel a blip when you're actually being redirected to a particular website. That blip is actually something like you are being redirected to another website, and then from there the traffic actually goes to the one on the retail website. This is actually redirection tracking, and Firefox's tracking protection, which is enhanced tracking protection 2.0, is now uh, blocking this from redirecting to the tracking website. It's directly taking you from the review website to the retail website. This is one of the examples where there is a redirection tracker. There are multiple examples where redirection trackers actually work. If you're searching something and if it is asking you to redirect to a specific site and you click on it, it is obviously going through a redirection tracker. And Firefox's enhanced tracking protection is helping you there. So let's see how we can configure our Firefox browser to make sure that all of these tracking mechanisms are on. Now you will ask that why is this not on by default? This is because Firefox as a browser wants to give its users the choice of opting into having better privacy protection. Giving it by default might not be the first choice of most of the people. So Firefox as a very crude browser or a new install actually comes in with none of these tracking protection enabled. If you're using private browsing in Firefox, it is enabled by default, but not in your normal browsing mode. So let's look at if you want to have a very private experience in your normal browsing mode, how would it work like? So in your address bar in Firefox browser, you can write about colon config, and then it will open up a window that will actually start configuring a lot of inherent variables onto your browser. So let's first look at first party isolation. You can write down privacy.firstparty.isolate. You can search it in the address bar. It will give you this particular variable. If it is set to false, you can set it to true. It is this privacy.firstparty isolate is actually a result of Tor's upliftment effort with Firefox. This preference isolates all your browser identifier sources, example cookies, to the first party domain with the goal of preventing trackers from actually understanding what are you doing online by not being able to track you throughout different domains. So this is one of the things that you can turn on. Another thing that you can turn on is anti-fingerprinting, which is privacy.resist fingerprinting. If it is false, please just double click it and it will set it to a boolean true. This is also a result of the Tor upliftment effort. This preference actually makes Firefox resist browser fingerprinting on your browser. Then there is tracking protection. It is if you just write privacy.tracking protection enabled. If it is set to false, please double click it to set the boolean to true. It will enable the tracking protection in your normal browsing mode. There are more number of variables to be set. These are the top three. If you want to go through these all the variables, I've written a small wiki for Firefox tracking protection and privacy settings. You can use the link there to actually have a look at what all variables can be set. Let's look at a few add-ons that you can use that help you not being tracked online. The first one I will highly recommend is the uBlock Origin. It is actually an ad blocker, and I would highly recommend you to use it because if you're using something like AdBlock Plus or AdBlock, it is not giving you a very good experience with ads because they allow some things called as acceptable ads, and I don't feel any ad could be acceptable. If you want to know more about acceptable ads, you can go to adblockplus.org slash acceptable ads hyphen hash criteria, and there is where you will find out more information about what acceptable ads are. If you're not okay with that, I will recommend you use something called as uBlock Origin, which is one of the very good ad blockers. The second add-on I would like to recommend is called the Privacy Badger. It is actually something that helps you stop advertisers and third-party trackers from secretly tracking you. It is an add-on from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and you can get more information from their website eff.org. Uh, Another thing that I would like to recommend is called something called as HTTPS everywhere. Uh, a lot of websites still today use HTTP, which is not the secure format of HTTP. or request protocol, you can make sure that using this add-on, you can make sure that all the websites that you're using are actually using HTTPS, and that will help you secure your transaction with that website. Another add-on that I have not mentioned here, but you can still use it, is called as NoScript. This is highly customizable plugin to selectively allow JavaScript, Java, or Flash to run for specific websites. Using a NoScript can actually sometimes break a few websites because they are really dependent on say JavaScript, Java, and Flash running in the background. But it is still customizable. So I will recommend, if you still want to use NoScript, it is an amazing privacy addition to your browser. So let's look at what happens when I have set up all these solutions onto my Firefox browser, and now I've gone to the same website again, and you can see that that a lot of trackers have now been blocked. Most of them, if not all, have been already blocked by some of the other mechanism that I was using, either the add-ons or the tracking protection that I've enabled in my Firefox browser itself. So all of these are the solutions. But remember, I had also mentioned about preferences, right? And preferences is something that we control. Our habits also control. So one of the major things onto preferences is the way we search onto the internet. And we use the most favorite engine that everybody uses, right? But that engine is actually tracking us throughout our search history. And if you really want to have a few different options for searching, you can use something called as DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo is actually a very private engine that says that it is not tracking you in their first browsing page itself. Uh, DuckDuckGo also hits really close to home for all of us by not tracking our search history. Um, so here's a scenario for something to begin with. Like if you try and search something called as cars onto DuckDuckGo, when you click on a website, your search engine may tell you that you have searched for cars and landed on its page. That can be useful for a variety of reasons, but typically for monetization. But in DuckDuckGo, if you search for cars, it is actually going to return a more private experience by not understanding if you are really interested in cars or not, and it is just going to give you plain results from the internet for cars. So using DuckDuckGo is using Linux against Microsoft Windows. If you look at it from a perspective of unlearning a particular model and learning something new. So do not expect Google related results or Google like results from DuckDuckGo when you're searching something. There is another search engine called CRX for people who would like to keep their information more private to themselves and even host their own search servers. So CRX is actually a meta search engine which aggregates results from other search engines and then sends it out to you by not storing your information and also anonymizing your request in itself. Um, you can, as I said earlier, you can also host your own uh, CRX instance locally or on a server that you have. Another search engine that I would like to recommend is called as Quant, and Quant is essentially based in Paris, a search engine based in Paris, and they started in 2013. Quant does not collect your data or use tracking cookies, and also disassociates your query and your IP address from the search that you're actually doing, so further enhancing your anonymity. Quant is based in the European Unions, so obviously they offer you the GDPR benefits and protection. And the final search engine that I would like to recommend is called at Start Page. Start Page. It exclusively uses Google results, but strips off all the personal data that is associated to your search request and then sends it out to Google. So if you really want that Google experience but still do not want to be tracked, Start Page is something that you should go into. So today we have gone through a lot of solutions for tracking and anonymizing your requests and how you can protect your data. We saw what is tracking protection, what is content blocking, how you can enable tracking protection on Firefox, what kind of browsers you can use, Brave, Firefox, and Tor. If you're using Firefox, then you can actually customize tracking protection, anti-fingerprinting onto your browser itself. We also saw some kind of add-ons that you can use for enhancing your tracking protection. We also saw a few search engines that you can use against the most popularly used search engine if you want to go the more private route. And essentially, I would like to end this talk with something that is really near to my heart. Is something called as a random tip. So I would highly recommend please cover your webcams. Um, I read in a blog that a former FBI director, James Comey, who said in an interview that I put a piece of tape over my camera because I saw somebody smarter than myself doing this. So this is more than enough for me to understand that you are continuously being spied on. If your data is so much worth protecting, then every camera on every device that you use can be spied on. If you do not have a camera cover, you can use a tape. Tape is cheap, right? All right, so that was your random tip and a session on tracking protection with Firefox and how you can actually guard your privacy. Thank you so much for listening to my talk and giving me your valuable time. I am Ankit signing off, and you all have a very nice day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that fantastic talk. Privacy is a very important aspect. I often wonder, when one is using things like ad blockers, whether the ad blocker itself is actually tracking you, and who do you trust at the end of the day? So that's why it's important, in terms of that you use as many open source things as you can, so that you can also kind of educate yourself about how the code works, and perhaps also kind of audit yourself in that sense. But a very important talk. Thank you so much. First question we have from our audience. Thank you. A really useful presentation. I've made all the configurations and added the add-ons recommended on the spot. Can you repeat whether all of these additional measures on top of Firefox's protection options compromise performance when browsing?
Hopefully you all can hear me. So
We can hear you,
essentially
yes.
what happens, yeah, thank you. Essentially what happens is every browser is optimized enough to use add-ons and extensions. So the performance is not really going to suffer if you're using add-ons that are certified by the browser itself, because they go through a rigorous process of review in terms of performance, privacy, and all that. Do not use any uncertified add-ons that can hamper your performance, but essentially about 15 to 20 add-ons can be handled through a browser load for sure.
Ankit, I'm not sure what webcam cover you're using, but it's throwing up a whole lot of static, which is kind of cool. So maybe that's your webcam cap, right? Your whole privacy thing. You confuse the spy. I'm getting a whole lot of crazy lines over there, which is kind of cool. You should tell me
I'm
what
sorry
add-on
about
that
that.
is. No. I think
I
it's
think
pretty awesome. It's really it's kind of it's acidy. I like it. Alrighty. We have another question. This is more for the youth, right? Please imagine you're talking to a young student that just entered the first year as an IT in an IT and computer science university. What advice would you give them?
Sure, that's an interesting question. I would give them two advices. Number one, privacy is an interesting thing, but it can give you scares about the internet. So do not worry about the internet. There are better sites to the internet as well. Learn as much as you can from the internet while guarding your privacy. There are lots of articles out there that you can use to not give out your data, but do not be afraid of the internet. And the second advice I would like to give is try and use open source, as you said earlier, as much as you can contribute to it. The best part about open source is you can see the code and everything is transparent out there. As a student, you learn a lot, and this will also help you in your career going ahead.
Absolutely. I would agree. And in fact, try and, although implementing your own security and your own algorithms and your own crypto is never a good idea, but learning how to do it is a good idea, right? So that you can then kind of contribute to other things. And I say that in the sense of crypto because, you know, our own crypto is never as good as the crypto that is peer reviewed.
Absolutely.
All righty. I've been asked by the team if you can change camera in any way, if that's possible, because we're getting your camera is throwing static, but we have your audio. Your audio is very good. All right, we have a comment here. Unfortunately, we use our cameras almost all of the time now in lockdown with constant online teaching and meetings. Yes, that's true, especially our children as well. I mean, I have 2 children who are constantly online now being taught during the lockdown. So any advice for the kids, perhaps?
Well, use the camera only when it's needed. That's the only advice I can give.
Yep. I'm wondering whether we might be able to have some kind of guidance, or whether we can search for some guidance and share with the audience at some point in the future about, you know, safe browsing practices, what kind of a conversation we should have with our children with regard to their privacy. That because they've all been born in the internet age, the millennials plus, and for them privacy is almost non-existent, right? And too often they give away our data in exchange for some little voucher or some little kind of code into, you know, into a Minecraft or something like that. Then they don't really appreciate the privacy issues.
Absolutely. I think it's more important for kids to know that whatever you do online can be easily tracked, and it will stay always on the internet for all the time. So it's just that if you don't want to see your picture doing something on the next day's front page newspaper, then you should not be doing it online.
I wonder if you can give us some thoughts on VPNs.
Absolutely. I actually did not touch on VPNs this time because it was really focused on Firefox. But I would highly recommend using VPNs, even if they are paid or not. In the US, right now, Mozilla is trying something called as Firefox VPN, which is for free if you start right now, but it's unfortunately not available in countries like India that I'm from. But there are lots of VPNs. I highly recommend VPNs that are hosted in Europe because they give you GDPR benefits.
Absolutely. Okay, fantastic. Excellent. So thank you so much for that talk. And I'm sure it's going to be very popular, you know, going forward, because these talks will all be available later on. So again, have a great rest of the day wherever you are in the world, and stay safe, stay healthy.